The Carson, Santa Fe, and Cibola National Forests have each released their final revised land management plans, final environmental impact statements, and draft records of decision. These documents reflect extensive public participation over many years, and we greatly appreciate the contributions from our cooperating agencies, partners, and the public that have resulted in plans that reflect the people and the land of northern and central New Mexico and our common goals across agencies and interests. Every national forest is required to have an overarching land management plan. These plans guide the Forest Service in our management of resources, goods, and services over a 10 to 15-year time frame. They describe a vision for desired ecological, cultural, and socioeconomic conditions and map a path for achieving those goals. Land management plans are not a list of future projects. Instead, they're intentionally strategic and broad in scope, and importantly, they do not replace the existing framework of laws, policies, and regulations that the Forest Service is required to operate within. The Carson, Santa Fe, and Cibola National Forests share a landscape in northern and central New Mexico with other landowners and managers. There are many similarities in the ecology across ownerships, and watersheds, wildlife, wildfire, and the public don't necessarily see administrative boundaries. There's a long history of human occupation, use, and reliance on these lands that long predates the creation of the Forest Service. And there are users and stakeholders that have an interest in all three forests who share common cultural histories, traditions, and values. Because of these similarities, the three forests have coordinated closely as we revised our land management plans. While we've written an individual plan for each forest, they're similar in a lot of ways. And this will mean more consistent forest management across boundaries, especially related to restoration and fire, designated areas that we share, and traditional communities and uses, like forest products, acequias, grazing, and access for religious and cultural practices. Currently, the entire Carson and Santa Fe National Forests and the Cibola National Forest mountain ranger districts are operating under plans developed in the mid-1980s that have all been amended multiple times. Under the National Forest Management Act of 1976, land management plans need to be periodically revised. And so between 2013 and 2014, the three forests began the process of revising our plans under the 2012 planning rule. The first step in the revision process was to assess the current conditions and trends on the lands we manage and in the surrounding landscape. We asked the public what they valued about the forests and measured ecological, social, cultural, and economic conditions. We published these assessments in 2015 and then used that information to identify changes that needed to be made to our current land management plans. Along with the legal requirement to revise, we found that these existing plans are outdated, prescriptive, and inflexible. Over the last nearly 40 years, new science has emerged, and we're facing new challenges that we didn't know about when these plans were originally written. They don't adequately account for the role of fire, limitations on water resources, current types and demands for recreation, socioeconomic factors, or the effects of climate change. The 1980s plans also didn't talk much about partnerships or collaboration, or focus on the contributions that the forests make to traditional land-based subsistence communities and local economies. In addition, the revised plans reflect decades of lessons learned from working with our first forest plans, which were part of the first round written by the Forest Service. The Cibola, Carson, and Santa Fe National Forests had robust, frequent, and multifaceted public participation throughout our plan revision processes. This included soliciting multiple rounds of public feedback on working drafts of our documents, government-to-government consultation with tribes, and coordinating with our cooperating government agencies like state and local governments, acequias, and land grants. Together with the public, we've developed a shared vision of how we want to manage multiple uses, restore ecosystems, support local communities, and connect people with the land. These plans describe that shared understanding of the work we agree we need to do as well as what the public values. There are several themes that run throughout the three plans that allow us to address the challenges we face in northern and central New Mexico now and in the future. And I'll talk about these three on the next slides. First, the final plans use an ecosystem-based approach and are less prescriptive than our previous plans, with a focus on restoration to improve function, to provide those forest products that the public values, and to benefit wildlife. Through monitoring, continued learning, and adaptation, the plans have the ability to address changing stressors like climate and wildfire, and better meet emerging issues, uses, and trends. There's also a new focus in the plans on the socioeconomic contributions from national forests. They support local communities by maintaining or increasing socially and economically valuable products and services like timber, livestock grazing, recreation, and clean water for drinking and irrigation. There's a recognition of the importance of these landscapes to traditional communities that rely on forest resources for subsistence uses, cultural practices, and religious ceremonies. Finally, all three plans emphasize partnerships and sharing of resources to increase our capacity, especially in areas like recreation, restoration, and monitoring. The plans emphasize our commitment to cooperating with others, incorporating local and traditional knowledge, and working toward shared goals. At the end of 2019, each forest released a draft plan for public comment. We've reviewed all those comments and have responded to each one. And the public can see our responses to comments in an appendix to each forest's environmental impact statement. You can also view the changes that resulted in our final plans and our final analyses. The forest supervisor for each forest has written a draft record of decision that explains how their forest considered comments, made changes, and arrived at our final plans. This document provides the rationale for changes from the draft plan to the final plan, and they're available online at the links at the bottom of this slide. These are draft decisions because there's still a final objection step before we can start to use these new plans. Currently, each forest is in a 60-day objection period, during which people and organizations who have previously submitted a comment are eligible to file an objection based on the issues raised in that previous comment. You can learn more about each forest's objection process and the requirements for filing an objection on the forest's websites, listed at the bottom of this slide. At the conclusion of the objection filing period, we will work with any objectors to resolve their concerns. Following resolution, the forest supervisors will sign a final record of decision and we'll be able to begin implementing our new forest plans. We expect to reach that final step in the process by next summer. For more information, please go to our planning website shown on the previous slide, or you can contact me, Peter Rich. I'm the forest planner for the Carson National Forest, or Claudia Rummold, the acting forest planner on the Santa Fe, or Alex Hamilton, the forest planner for the Cibola National Forest. Thank you to everyone who's contributed to these plans, and we look forward to continuing to work together to put them into practice.